Mr. Jeff Streeter, the Director of the British Council, Hong Kong. Professor Stuart Christie, the Head of Department of English Language and Literature, the Hong Kong Baptist University. Dr. Jose Lai, Director of English Language Teaching Unit, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Our question masters today are Mr. Jeff Nankerville, Consulate General of Canada in Hong Kong and Macau, and Mr. Gavin McDougall, Director, Public Affairs, Australian Consulate General, Hong Kong. This past year has not been easy, and we are very grateful that our contest has been a smooth success, thanks to the generous support of our co-organizer, the English-Speaking Union Hong Kong, along with our supporting organizations, including the Education Bureau, Hong Kong SAR Government, the British Council, Hong Kong, Center for Language Education, the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Department of English Language and Literature, Hong Kong Baptist University, English Language Teaching Unit, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Hong Kong Association for Customer Service Excellence, Standing Committee on Language Education and Research, the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, the Law Society of Hong Kong, and our supporting media, M21, Youth Hong Kong, and Youth Spot Magazine. Without their unwavering support, it would not have been a success. Of course, we'd also like to thank all of you, our guests, parents, teachers, students, staff, and volunteers for accommodating for our various special arrangements this year, and this is the reason why this is all possible. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tiffany, the Grand Finalist of this contest in 2017, and this is my honor to be back again and being your MC for today. Every single year, our contest has been highlighted by the incredible performances from all of our contestants, and this year is no different. They never cease to amaze us with their different contents, engaging presentations, and charismatic stage presence. And we are happy to see so many aspiring Toastmasters joining us and starting at such a young age. And yet every year we challenge them with a current and thought-provoking theme. In the course of this past year, everything has changed, and it was a rough ride, to be honest. This year, we shine light on the theme of resilience and wellness. We'd like to see how our contestants interpret the meaning behind this, and we'd like to receive some great takeaways so we can face unpredictable challenges with grit and poise. Now, let's briefly run through the rules of today's competition. We'll begin with the junior divisions from Form 1 to Form 3, or Year 7 to Year 9. Followed by the senior division of Forms 4 to 6, or Years 10 to 12. The format of both categories will be the same. Each finalist will make a 3-minute speech in response to a pre-provided guiding question. Timekeeping will start within 5 seconds after the finalist has gotten into position to begin their speech. Simultaneously, our timekeeper will raise a start sign and ring the bell once, after which the finalist may start speaking. Though no audible signal will be given, time signals will be raised to indicate the remaining speech time at 1 minute and at 30 seconds. At the time of 3 minutes, the timekeeper will ring the bell twice, and the finalist must immediately stop his or her speech. There'll be no grace period. Each finalist will then be asked 2 questions on the spot by our question masters, one related to the speech by Mr. Nankerville, and one unrelated question by Mr. McDougall. Each finalist will have 1 minute to answer each question. And right after the question, the timekeeper will raise the start sign and ring the bell once. And the contestant may start to give his or her answers. At the time of 30 seconds, a time signal will be raised to show the remaining time. And at the time of 1 minute, the timekeeper will ring the bell twice, and the speaker must stop immediately. The judges will rate each performance according to the substance of the speech, style, and techniques of the speaker, as well as the general effectiveness and their response to the questions. In each division, We'll have a champion, first runner-up, and second runner-up, and 2 merit awards will be given out. All of these at the awards ceremony later this morning. And don't forget, there's also an audience favorite. So the audience favorite award will have this fate lie in your hands. So before we invite our first finalist onto the stage, we would like to remind you once again to put your phones on silent. Without further ado, let's begin the contest from the junior division. So this year, we'd like to invite our speakers to think critically and creatively. They're confronted with Ralph Waldo Emerson's quote, "We acquire the strength we have to overcome." Our guiding questions are, what do you think this means, and have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment like this? Do you think that resilience may be the most important characteristic that an individual can have? These concerns are contestants' personal development and help them reflect on their take on leaders gathering strength through challenges. Now, let us introduce contestant number 1 of the junior division, Ms. Huang Cynthia. The title of her speech is To Break and Burgeon. Cynthia, you have 3 minutes. You may begin after the bell rings.
To overcome an obstacle is to surpass a force greater than yourself. Naturally, if we extend ourselves past our limit, it means we have grown stronger. In a very literal sense, this is exactly why exercise can help your body become more powerful. Each time we contract our muscle, we actually suffer internal damage. Tiny tears will appear on the muscle as it is being used, and after the exertion, these tears will be repaired by more muscle fibers, resulting in muscle growth. By approaching and facing more and more difficult challenges, we acquire new strength. However, facing these challenges is only the first step. Resilience and persistence is the true key to improvement. Exercising just once won't give you a six-pack. You need to work out regularly. And to do that, you must face a challenge that you just can't overcome, in the moment at least. It might even break you, like a ceramic bowl that shatters to the floor and breaks to pieces. But this is not the end. There's a Japanese art known as kintsukurī, in which these broken pottery pieces are rejoined together using gold-colored lacquer. It's this initial fall that allows these pieces of art to hold such beauty and value. These broken pieces are just like all of our failed attempts. If we can keep picking ourselves back up, if we can learn from our mistakes and fill gold in our cracks, we allow our failures to become the very catalyst that lets us become more than just the sum of our parts. When I think of my own strengths that have arisen from struggles, I'm instantly reminded of the piano. When I was a child, my parents would force me to play half an hour every day, including the time I spent stalling and haggling with them. Each piece was frustratingly simple in the beginning, and I did not have the patience for them. But as they got harder and more complex, I threw tantrums because I couldn't play them perfectly. Each minute passed seemed like an hour. However, as I grew older, all my hard work began to pay off. I'd come miles and miles from where I first started, and it's all because I did not give up. Without resilience, nobody would ever be able to achieve anything. Even Stephen King had 30 publishers reject his first novel manuscript before it was finally accepted. Success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about overcoming it. We must break before we can burgeon. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Cynthia. Mr. Nakaville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nakaville, please.
Good morning, Cynthia. Thank you very much for your speech. Cynthia, some people say that nothing worth having comes easily. Do you think this is true? Does effort equate with satisfaction?
Yes, for sure. Nothing will come easily. I'm a badminton player as well as a piano player, and I can assure you it was not an easy process training my muscles to be able to undergo these vigorous training sessions. Talent can only take you so far. The rest is up to you and your hard work. It is up to your will to improve yourself.
Hi, Cynthia.
Thank you. Now, Mr. McDougall will now ask you a second question that's not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question is asked. And you'll also have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you for reminding me why I don't have a six-pack. But I was wondering, in this modern age of social media and, dare I say it, the Kardashians, is image far more advantageous than substance?
With social media, people can be selective about which side of themselves they wish to portray to the public world. As you said, the Kardashians, they might not be good people at all, but people see who they are just based on the images that they post on the Instagram and YouTube and whatever else they may be using. And this is only the side that they choose to put out. So yes, this image that you yourself can decide what to put out is far more advantageous than your actual substance, because no one will actually know what will happen. In this day and age, it is incredibly unfair for people who have actually put in hard work instead of the people who just polish the surface and make it seem like they're actually better than they are.
Thank you, Cynthia. Please proceed to the waiting room.
Thank you.
As for the rest of us, please remain silent as our judges are filling on the score sheet. Let us now introduce contestant number 2 of the junior division, Mr. Naranjan Vijay Sathapan. The title of his speech is My Learnings on Resilience. You now have 3 minutes. You may begin after the bell rings.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. When I was young, I loved talking and gradually started giving speeches. From speaking in front of my classmates to giving out informal speeches on my family get-togethers, public speaking soon became one of my cherished hobbies. So, last year, I decided to participate in a public speaking contest. I prepared my speech and I got through the initial stages of the competition. But then, it was over. I was knocked out in the semifinals. I was sad and a bit disappointed, but after some thought, I realized that this was not the end. In fact, it was just the beginning. Today, I wish to share with you 3 points on how I think I was resilient enough to bounce back from my failure. Number 1, forget the past, prepare for the future. After the results were announced, I kept on thinking about what I could have done better. But then I realized there was no point in thinking about what I could have done differently. I couldn't change the past. What I could do, though, was change the future. So I picked myself up and I started to watch a variety of YouTube videos on variety of TED Talks on YouTube, read articles, books, and magazines to improve my knowledge of various topics, and organize friendly debates at the dinner table. These simple acts helped me improve my content skills and my speaking abilities. Number 2, Ask for help. I've always been shy in the past to ask for help. It seemed to me like acknowledgement of the fact that I didn't know. But this had to change last year when I learned that asking for help is in fact a sign of resilience. I too began asking for help. I asked my teachers on tips to improve my speeches and asked my parents and friends to be my friendly judges and audience members for the speeches that I'd written. Number 3, become 2.0, a better version of yourself. After comparing yourself with others only increases the pressure on you. We all like comparing ourselves, seeing where we are on the spectrum. So getting rid of this habit can be very hard. To combat this, I set a simple goal for myself last year, which is to be better than who I was in my last speech. So friends, those were my 3 learnings. Number 1, forget the past, prepare for the future. Number 2, ask for help. And number 3, become 2.0, a better version of yourself. For my fellow competitors, I wish you the best of luck. And for my friends who weren't able to get into this final round, I hope the learning which I have shared of some use to you in your efforts for next year. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Vijay. Mr. Nankerville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankerville, please.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for your speech. If you were given a manual to life that contains a formula to success, would you choose to follow it? Why or why not?
If I was given a formula to success, I would definitely not follow it because I believe that my life is in my hands. And as the famous saying goes, you only live once. I want to experiment for myself how life operates and how I can succeed in life without anybody's help, and how I can use my failures as stepping stones towards success, which will definitely come to me in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask a second question that is not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question is asked. And you will also have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, Vijay. Part of my role involves public relations. I have a very good client, Australia, but I want to imagine that you're a PR agent and you have a brand new client who's had a pretty bad rap over the past 12 months. I want you to say what you would do for COVID-19 in terms of what are the positives for your client.
Thank you for your question. Now, COVID-19 has definitely changed the world we all live in. Tourism and hospitality are some of the biggest sectors that are being affected by COVID-19. One of my friends was in a pickle and I had to help him out. I would definitely start by saying that how failures are not a measure of how bad you are. Failures are stepping stones towards your success. And even if you're in a pickle for quite some time, must realize that that will not be forever. Instead, that will be only your stepping stone towards all your successes, which will definitely come in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Please proceed to the waiting room. For the rest of us, please remain silent as our judges are filling out the score sheet. Now let us introduce contestant number 3 of the junior division, Mr. Lee Mark Jin Kang. The title of his speech is Rediscovering Resilience.
Testing.
Mark, you now have 3 minutes. You may begin after the bell rings.
Let's face it, we all worship at the altar of success, aspiring to be one of the lucky few who reach the pinnacle. On the other hand, we have the failures, those who have fallen just shy of the ultimate goal. Ladies and gentlemen, We are misled into believing that there is an inherent, unbridgeable dichotomy between success and failure. That is categorically false. Successful people weren't born successful, nor did they start at the top of the hierarchy. How they got there was through resilience. All this is corroborated by psychologist Angela Duckworth, who, when hired by the US military, found out that the key factor in why some students would randomly quit the program wasn't gender and it wasn't talent. It was because of resilience. As Emerson once said, we acquire the strength we have overcome. And even though challenges may sometimes seem like dark, intangible monsters waiting to swallow us whole, they're in fact opportunities for us to pick ourselves up and continue charging forward. With COVID rampaging across the globe, times are bleak. And this same sense of hopelessness that I'm sure we all share is exacerbated because we are isolated from one another. It is exactly at these times when we need to cling tight to resilience now more than ever before. So how? How do we get our hands on this almost ethereal quality that has the potential to turn our lives around? Internally, we need to focus on what we can control. Instead of losing sleep over things that are outside of our jurisdiction, pinpoint what we have influence over and then devote our time and energy onto that. Externally, remember that it's always fine to fall back on family and friends if you need help and support. There is no shame in being human. In fact, as with every society that has ever endured, it is through collective cohesion that we humans are able to survive times of tribulations. Just last year, I was in a room competing for my very first public speaking competition. Everyone else was miles better than me, and I wanted to get up, to run out of the room and never show my face around the circuit ever again. Resilience was what got me through. Every time I wanted to bolt but stayed put, that put me another step closer to where I am now. And that doesn't just apply to a scared 14-year-old public speaking, it applies to all of us. Every other quality, be it leadership ability, intelligence, or charisma, cannot carry us to success if we quit midway. However, with resilience, we truly are able to acquire the strength we have overcome. May we all have the power to do so. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Mark. Mr. Nankerville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once, and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked. And you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankerville, please.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you for participating, and congratulations for reaching this stage. My question is this. It is argued by some that the real strength lies in letting go of things, of people, of ideas. Do you think this is right? Couldn't holding on be a strength also?
Yes, thank you very much for your question. I believe that there are two sides to resilience, and the best use of resilience is resilience tempered with wisdom. Now, firstly, we use our wisdom, we use our past experience, and we consult with parents and adults to find out where we should focus. And then after we find those places, after we find our niches and hobbies, be it public speaking, debate, or basketball, we then focus on it. Because we know that these things are what we want to devote our time to. We know that these things are what is worth putting time in. And so therefore, even when the going gets tough and you feel like it might be wiser because of the margin of diminishing returns to quit, that is wrong. Firstly, we need to use wisdom and use our intelligence to find out where we need to focus on. But after we have decided on a course, we cannot veer away. Otherwise, we will accomplish nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask a second question that's not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question is asked. And you will also have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Mark, first, thanks for coming back. Recently, one of Hong Kong's biggest movie cinema chains closed down. Some people might have suggested that with Netflix and other streaming services, this was inevitable. Do you agree with that sentiment? And if so, why?
Okay, thank you very much. I totally agree with that sentiment. Because with the advancement of online technologies like Disney Plus and Netflix, as you mentioned, these things are quickly taking over the globe. They're taking over the globe by storm. because of the fact that most people want to go to the cinema for the event and for the feeling and the atmosphere, I think that this has already been replicated by having curtains closed, by sitting with your loved ones at home while watching. Furthermore, due to the physical circumstances and the geographical locations that cinemas are situated in, it is often a hassle to like connect your time and also to like plan for the logistics of where to go. And so therefore, I believe that because Netflix is more convenient and it allows you to watch it anytime you want, I believe that this was inevitable, and that COVID only furthered its demise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Please proceed to the waiting room. Let us now introduce contestant number 4 of the junior division, Ms. Chao Hei Tung. The title of her speech is Cheer Loud, Cheer Proud. You now have 3 minutes. You may begin after the bell rings. Sorry, Hei Tung, may we pause a bit? We'll have to fix up the microphone. Thank you. Okay, I'll count you in again. You now have 3 minutes, and you may begin after the bell rings.
Imagine you're in an abyss. It is so dark that you can't see a thing. You try to climb out, but you keep on falling. Have you ever experienced a setback that weighs you down? When we face adversity, people would cheer us up by saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." This truly reflects the quote of Emerson. In dark times, resilience is what keeps us going. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow tough cookies. Having resilience is important to us. But when you're alone, hurt, hopeless, from where could you draw your strength to keep going? Here is a story of my life that reveals an extra element that can make resilience even more powerful. 4 years ago, when I was in anticipation for my volleyball competition, I twisted my ankle. It was a serious injury, and I stopped training for 3 weeks. Could you imagine how hopeless I was? I felt like my 5 years' worth of effort were all lost at once. My teammates encouraged me by saying, "Everything will be fine," but it doesn't really help. I still felt vulnerable. When I was totally overwhelmed, my teammate, Hazel, treated me differently. As my ankle got better, she came to me and said, "Let's do some warm-up together. Be prepared for the competition." Hazel went down to the abyss, reached out to me, and pulled me out of it. Since then, we have recovery practices twice a week together. Before long, I successfully joined the competition. I went through all of these not only with my resilience, but most importantly, a support system, a cheerleader in life, the extra element that makes all the difference. Imagine that you're laid off during the pandemic. lost your loved one, or got terribly ill. Wouldn't you want a cheerleader who connects with you, believes in you, and cheer loud and proud for you? Cheerleaders won't make your problem go away, but they help you to stand back up faster and make the pain more bearable. What doesn't kill you hurts you, but what truly makes you stronger is the one who pulls you out of the turmoil, your cheerleader in life. Of course, we need resilience to get stronger, but we all need a cheerleader to champion us too. In turn, we can also be the one who pulls others out of misery. So, fellow cheerleaders, let's cheer loud and cheer proud. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Hei Tong. Mr. Nankivil will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once, and the star card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankivil, please.
Good morning. Thank you for your speech and congratulations on reaching this stage of the competition. My question is this: can being too optimistic actually be a flaw? What do you think of those who have blind optimism?
Thank you for your question. And first of all, I think that being optimistic is definitely a good thing, as it gives us the motivation to work hard to strive for the things we want. But sometimes being over is a very bad thing, in which that we may, sometimes when we want to strive for more, when we want to achieve more, we may do something bad, like we may get some back roads that we may go and find others for help, or just cheat and tell the judge that, can you give me a champion? And being over optimistic may cause some problems like that. But as long as we have optimism and it is the motivation for us to strive further and strive more, I think that is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask a second question not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the star card will be raised right after the question is asked. And you will also have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, Aitung. Education institutions around the world have had to pivot to online learning. Do you think this has been an advantage or a disadvantage? And further, do you think universities will see this as a plus for admissions or a minus?
I think that having online lessons may be a minus for both primary and secondary school students. As for me, I have the experience of having both online lessons and face-to-face lessons at the moment. I think that having online lessons, there are many distractions around us. Like when we are having lessons, there may be a mobile phone next to us and we may not be able to resist, and we may just scroll through our phones all the time when we are having lessons. So we are not able to listen carefully during lessons. And when we are having face-to-face lessons, the teacher will look at us and we couldn't use our phones. So it's more effective. But for university students, I think that they're more disciplined than primary and secondary school students. And if they have online lessons, they may have more time to mark down their notes and have lectures. As I think that university students have lectures at their school as if having online lessons. So I think that it is a plus for university students. Thank you.
Thank you, Hei Tung. Please proceed to the waiting room. Let us now introduce contestant number 5 of the junior division, Ms. Wong Ying Chun Gladys. The title of her speech is An Illustration of Resilience. Gladys, you now have 3 minutes, and you may begin after the bell rings.
Good morning, everybody. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "We acquire the strength we have overcome. Is it true that we receive much more than just a sigh of relief after we overcome difficulties? After the coronavirus pandemic broke out, our school, like most others, adopted the use of online classrooms. However, I encountered many problems. How do I check the deadlines of my homework? How can I edit a PDF? These questions swirled in my mind like a whirlpool. How could I be resilient at a point like this? Thousands of other kids, undoubtedly, have come across these problems too. How could they solve them? So here's the thing. Have any of you ever regretted giving up on something? I have to admit that I wanted to give up. I felt hopeless and that I couldn't adapt no matter how hard I tried. But the resilience in me was like a powerful force which willed me to keep trying. Finally, when I tried to use my remote apps one day, I found that I knew my way around. At that moment, I was dumbfounded. I could not believe I had actually succeeded. So that was when I realized that practice really does make perfect. Or at least, practice helps me do just fine. We're just not good at them naturally. Now, it's time to stop these kind of thoughts and try our best to overcome our difficulties. Eventually, when I could control my iPad and the new systems, I stumbled across a new hobby, painting on my iPad. I never tried it before, but I found that I enjoyed it a lot. It made me realize that the saying is true. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So let me tell you something. It's time we all step out of our comfort zones and embrace new things that come into our lives. You never know. Maybe you'll find things out there that you love. Another thing that I found is that true resilience is standing right back up after tripping over your own shoelaces. Resilience is scrambling back to the light, even if we reach the darkest moments of our lives. Resilience is overcoming our difficulties so we can grow to be stronger and wiser. So if you ask me, resilience is indeed the most important attribute an individual can have. Think about this. Do you always avoid problems just because you don't want to work hard to overcome them? Do you use the excuse that you were not born talented to give up on something easily? If your answer was yes, then don't forget what I just expressed. Don't be afraid to try and overcome your difficulties, because as Ralph Waldo Emerson said, we acquire the strength we have overcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your speech, Gladys. Mr. Nankerville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankerville, please.
Good morning, Gladys.
Good morning.
Thanks for participating and congratulations for reaching this round of the competition. My question is this. You may be familiar with the concepts of IQ and with EQ, or emotional intelligence. Now we have something added to the list, which is called AQ, or adaptability quotient. How important do you think adaptability quotient is, given the world we live in today?
I think that AQ is actually very important nowadays. Because of the coronavirus, we have to stay at home to learn and endure online lessons. But I think that the most important thing is that you have to have adaptability, because it's very difficult to adapt to the sudden change of the learning environment. And it's very important to have the adaptability to adapt to online lessons and learn just as well as we learn in face-to-face lessons. And the most important thing, of course, is our own to motivate ourselves and to pay attention during the online lessons so we can adapt to the new environment and do just as well as we do in face-to-face lessons. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask you a second question not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question is asked. And you will also have 1 minute to answer the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, Gladys. This is an English language contest, and congratulations on getting to this stage. I want to ask, if you had a full year to learn a new language, which language would it be and why?
Thank you for your question. If I have a whole year to learn a new language, it would definitely be Spanish. Because in my school, I have a friend who learned Spanish for like 2 years already. And I think that it is very fun for her to do it. And then I also think that she says that Spanish can be used in many countries, and we can use it to enhance our communication skills with other people. So I would try to learn Spanish, and I hope I will have the resilience to learn to master in it. And also, it would be really fun if I could learn it with her at the same center. Of course, sometimes people say that French is also the major communication language, but I think that's for me, I would also prefer Spanish because, well, my friend has learned Spanish, and then we can learn together and then have more fun. And we can also enhance each other's ability of speaking Spanish together. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys. Please proceed to the waiting room. All of the finalists in the junior division have delivered their speeches. We'll give some time to the judges to fill out the score sheet. Before proceeding to the senior division, here's a friendly reminder to jot down your favorite speaker of the junior division first before we listen to the speeches of the senior division, as you will be able to cast your vote for your favorite speaker for the audience favorite award. The junior division has definitely been a very interesting round. We've heard our speakers talk about their journeys in the contest or their experiences in overcoming difficulties. And I'm sure every one of us here have learned something from their experiences as well. And it's great to hear from them, even though at such a young age, have these sorts of insights that they can share with us. So that helps us move on to our senior division. The finalists of the senior division have been confronted with Socrates' saying, "The secret of happiness, you see, is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less." The guiding questions include, what is your take on this saying? What do you think is the secret of happiness? How do we find joy in everyday life, even during trying times? I'll give everybody a moment to ponder on that philosophical saying as we move on to our contestant number 1 of the senior division, Ms. Kurosawa Yui. The title of her speech is "I Need to Be Happy." You now have 3 minutes, and you may begin after the bell rings.
Dining with 4 people, seeing toilet paper fully stocked in our grocery store. These are the things that you and I have come to appreciate that we definitely wouldn't have before the pandemic. If there's anything good about COVID, it's that we've naturally developed our capacity to enjoy less. Finding joy through these tiring times is not about seeking more, but appreciating the little things like spending extra time with your family. Gratitude is an important key to unlocking happiness. But let's take this one step further
and talk about something that not a lot of people like to admit. Gratitude is a lot easier said than done. As a new student at my school, I felt the loneliest I've ever felt during COVID-19 when classes started. And I felt like people forgot my existence. I kept on telling myself that I had my family, that have a great education, but I wasn't really feeling grateful. When I opened up to my teacher about this, she told me to look on the bright side, that there were students who had it far worse than I did, and that I needed to focus on the positives. I felt ashamed and embarrassed for even thinking about these trivial problems that I had, and I closed the lid to these negative emotions. I wanted to be grateful. I needed to be happy. I wanted to shut out all those toxic, negative emotions and just reach this destination called happiness. Gratitude, especially during trying times, sometimes comes in the form of external pressure and frowns of, why can't you be more grateful? It's sad that with the good intention of encouraging others, we reinforce toxic positivity, which invalidates the very emotions that we beg for validation. The secret to happiness is to realize that happiness is not a destination, but a journey, and the acceptance of all your emotions during that journey. So I agree with Socrates to develop your capacity to enjoy less. But these are unprecedented times, and mental health problems have risen so much during these times. So it's okay if not all of us are ready to be happy. The next time someone opens up to you about a problem, instead of saying, don't be so negative, say, I understand your struggles and I empathize with them. Those words might not change the world, but they would have changed mine. Create the happiness that you want to see, one step at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Yui. Mr. Nankerville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankerville, please.
Good morning, Yui. Thank you for your speech, and congratulations on reaching this stage of the competition. My question is this: do you think that happiness is an evolving concept? That is to say, does happiness evolve as our social environment and context change?
I definitely agree so, because the more things that we have this thing called hedonic adaptability, where we start to adapt to the things that we have and we start to expect more. For example, once I had an iPhone 8, I suddenly wanted an iPhone 12, and then I wanted a new iPhone, then I wanted an iPad. I wouldn't have expected all of these things if I hadn't gotten an iPhone to begin with. Happiness definitely does evolve, as with anything else. As circumstances change, our expectations also change. We have to remember that we might have started out with nothing, and that to be grateful for the things that we start to have as time goes on and the circumstances change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask a second question not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question is asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, Yui. Success is often described as 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. In this age of ideas and where almost everybody seems to be the managing director of a startup, do you think that luck actually plays a bigger role in success?
As with anything, luck always plays a very big role in success. I think even with speech competitions, how much your speech actually resonates with individual judges is a very huge factor that you cannot really control. As with startups, we've seen so many startups, so many inspiring people trying to accomplish something, trying to reach a milestone, but only a very few percentage of those people actually make it in society to create a positive impact. Especially during this age when there's a very low barrier into actually creating the startups and creating an impact, we have to think about how much work we're willing to give it in. And I think this boils down to how passionate you are about what you're really doing. Are you doing it just to make yourself feel good? Or are you doing it because you genuinely care about the impacts that you want to see in the world? Thank you.
Thank you, Yui. Please proceed to the waiting room. Let us now introduce contestant number 3 of the senior division, Ms. Yao Yuk Lam. Oh, sorry. Let us now introduce contestant number 2 of the senior division, Ms. Yao Yuk Lam. The title of her speech is Seeking Joy Through Simplicity. You now have 3 minutes. You may begin after the bell rings.
Socrates, the renowned philosopher, once said, "The secret to happiness, you see, isn't found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less." The more I pondered, the more I researched, the more this quote inspired me. During childhood, we all seek joy in the most random things. Many of us enjoy talking to worms or rolling on the grass. Such simple actions are able to invoke such joy. Dear adjudicators and audience, right outside this venue is a patch of grass. Yet, how many of us can still roll around happily without concern for others' judgment? The older we become, the more competitive we become. Blinded by competition, we easily lose sight of where joy can be found, even in the simplest places. Being competitive is hardwired into our psyche for survival. But in modern society, no longer do we need to hold on to it. I know, it's easier said than done. As we meet different people with different strengths, we become dissatisfied with ourselves. We compare, and we see nothing but our own flaws. The moment we accomplish something, we realize that we aren't enough, and we continue to strive for more and more. Accomplishment after accomplishment, we're doing nothing but feeding a bottomless pit of unhealthy desires. Instead of seeking more, we must seek what we have here. Even during trying times, we must confront ourselves. When confronting ourselves, we realize what we already have, and we broaden our horizons and become more open-minded to accepting simpler options, like rolling on the grass. Upon confronting ourselves, we realize what we truly need, which might not be what we always plan to achieve. Upon confronting ourselves, we realize how to seek joy through simplicity, thus develop the capacity to enjoy less. Previously, I crafted my speeches to fit the preferences of the adjudicators, yet I was never truly satisfied with my own speeches, and I never understood why until I developed the capacity to enjoy less, like now. Now, I've learned to express what I want to express instead. Socrates' quote holds true. We must develop the capacity to enjoy less if we wish to achieve happiness. Yet, that is the last step. The first, the most important step, the fundamental core to achieving happiness is confronting ourselves. The secret to happiness, you see, isn't found in seeking more, but in developing ourselves by seeking joy, by confronting ourselves. That is my speech. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for your speech, Yaklam. Mr. Nankivil will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to answer the question. Mr. Nankivil, please.
Good morning, Yuklam. Congratulations for reaching this round of the competition, and thank you for your interesting speech. My question is this: what role do you think social media and celebrities play in shaping people's idea of happiness these days?
Thank you for your question. That is really interesting. So I think as people rely more on social media, we tend to fake a part of ourselves to make people think that we're having fun, when in reality we might not be. And instead, our world surrounds around how people see us. And sometimes, in order to have these really beautiful photos, we are actually feeling very stressed and we don't feel happy at all. And I feel that although social media is a good medium, many of us can not use it well enough to find and enjoy the small things in life. That is my question. That is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask a second question not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be raised after the question is asked. You will also have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hello. In my country, in recent years, there's been a particular focus on this issue, but also the popular Korean Netflix series, It's Okay to Not Be Okay, has shed a light on mental health issues, in spite of it being a romantic drama. Why do you think there is still so much stigma against mental health, and what should be done to combat these negative perceptions?
Thank you for your question. I actually read somewhere that people's mental health has been declining more and more. And I think that might be related to our expectations and what we want to accomplish. Because as time evolves, that we want to achieve more and more, and there's even more competitiveness, as I mentioned in my speech. And that's why our mental health has been declining. And that's why a lot of people, like even in society, we might always feel like we're always upset because we're just unable to find the small things. And we're just, in our head, we just keep wanting to compete for more and more. Thus, our mental health is insufficient. Thank you. That is my answer.
Thank you, Yehlam. Please proceed to the waiting room. Let us now introduce contestant number 3 of the senior division, Ms. Ng Yut Hae. The title of her speech is Just Right. You now have 3 minutes, and you may begin after the bell rings.
If you Google "make the fullest of life," you'll get 81 million results in less than 0.6 seconds. That's how obsessed we are when it comes to having more, bigger, and better things in life. Better grades, more diplomas, higher income, faster promotions, bigger apartments, fancier cars. Do you believe that is the recipe for a happier, more fulfilling life? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, fellow achievers. We work on average up to 44 hours per week for what we want in life. Recently, Hong Kong was ranked top overworked city in the world. In Asia, a lot of countries like Seoul, Singapore, and Tokyo not far behind. In such a hyper-competitive environment, ambitions lead to success and hopefully happiness. We become not just achievers in the process, but overachievers. We're seeking more, having more, experiencing more, but are we happier? Socrates' quote tells us, it's good to enjoy less. Less is more. The thing is, ambition is good, but too much ambition at the expense of our inner joy is not good. That's why we need the mindset of being just right. This mentality is going to help us through SOS, which I call Symptom 1, self-improvement fanatic. You often feel the need to constantly prove yourself to others, the need that you're not enough, that you're not as competent. Rome wasn't built in one day. Remember to pace yourself, and you don't have to learn everything in one go. Second, obsession with material goods. Shopping sprees are exciting, but unnecessary purchases will ultimately gather dust. So shop mindfully and start decluttering. Learn from Marie Kondo. Keep things that spark joy. The final S is social expectations. We don't have to be a people pleaser. We don't have to make everyone happy. Have just right number of friends, have just right expectations on friendship, and just right effort into it. Life is stressful enough in Hong Kong, but combined with the fear of COVID, losing jobs, education disruption, it seems like it's even harder for us to find joy. But here is how we can achieve happiness with just right. Imagine someone patting you on the back saying, "You're good enough. You have worked just hard enough. It's just the right time to stop." What good will it do to push ourselves to the point of burnout? Value yourself by not selling yourself short. We are all learning in this process to make improvements, to become a better, happier self. We're all in this together, so let's work hard to achieve the utmost important thing in the world, which is happiness. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Vijay. Mr. Nankerville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankerville, please.
Good morning, Vijay. Congratulations for reaching this stage of the competition. My question is this. If you think about the happiest people you have met in your life, what do you think makes them so happy, and how has that influenced your thinking?
So thank you for your question. There are not many happy people in my life because everyone is so stressed out about their schoolwork, academic life, and all that. But some of them are really happy all the time. They smile all the time. They bring a smile to other people's face. So I think a lot of them have something in common, is that they don't worry about the future. It's essential for us to care about what is going to happen next, but just don't overthink. Overwhelm yourself with all those doubts, worry, doubting if you are good enough, doubting if you have worked just right. It's not that important. Live the moment. You are good enough because you are already trying your best and you deserve the recognition. So I think they always remind themselves that they are just as good as others and they're just right. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask a second question that's not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked. And you will also have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, thanks for your speech. As old industries disappear and new industries appear, some old professions disappear and some new professions are created. In a recent survey in the United States, more than 50% of young people said that for a future career, they wanted to be an influencer. Do you think this is a legitimate career or something that's based on pure superficiality?
To me, it's really just up to their personal preferences. I think it's just a lot of young people nowadays would like to touch on fields like being a YouTuber or editing videos, which is really fun to me because a lot of my friends actually vlog their lives and post that. But I think the point is you can't treat that as a really reliable or a really future. You can't assure that you have a really sustainable and fair income. But the point is you have to do what makes you happy the most. And to me, some people may be vlogging their lives, filming their everyday lives. It's okay to do whatever you like to do. It's just follow your heart and try something new, but don't depend your future or your career on this. Maybe you can try multiple things and find out what you like the most and just try out new things, expose yourself to different things. Thank you.
Thank you, Yunhei. Please proceed to the waiting room. Let us now introduce contestant number 4 of the senior division, Ms. Lee Yat Kwan Hillary. The title of her speech is YOLO. Hillary, you now have 3 minutes, and you may begin after the bell rings.
How do you perceive happiness?
Does having more make you happy? Or are you already satisfied with what you have? We define happiness differently. Some think that wealth brings happiness, while some are content enough to be carefree. To me, being happy is always about enjoying the present. Why? Because I only live once. People seek happiness by possession, but sometimes they can be too obsessed with gaining more. Like, sometimes they want more money, but actually they can't find happiness by it. And it's like, but I never thought of gaining happiness like that because you just can't get the most of happiness. Happiness is not only about enjoying less, but it is also about enjoying what you have. Life is about enjoying. Wouldn't you be suffering for your entire life if you cannot do so? It will be really hard for me to live that long. And you need happiness because you can deal with your life more. But happiness to me is not about only treasuring less. I have to seek happiness through enjoying what I have now. It's like I'm not that kind of people who will be angry all the time. But last time when my sister made me angry, I just forgot about that 15 minutes later. Happiness helped me live a lot. And through happiness, it is what made my life better. Socrates once said, the secret of happiness, is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less. I will be much more depressed if I can't be happy like I am now. And I know that I'm so nervous like here, but I really hope that joy can help me feel better after this contest. And I know happiness is something that is hard to achieve because it's almost like our habit to seek more instead of enjoying less. By changing our attitude, we can see the world through a whole new perspective. We should be happy about things we have because we need happiness to deal with life. So please be more joyful and cheerful about your life, and we can live a better world in the society. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Hillary. Mr. Nankerville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be raised right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankerville, please.
Good morning, Hillary. Thank you for your speech and congratulations for reaching this round of the competition. As it happens, March 20th is World Happiness Day. Hong Kong ranks 16th in the world for per capita income, but Hong Kongers as a society rank 78th in the world in terms of their reported happiness. What do you think makes Hong Kong people so unhappy when they have so much?
Because happiness is not about owning what you have, but it's about how you think about the world you're living in. So, even Hong Kong people possess a lot of money. They can live in homes. They enjoy a lot of things, but they live a very busy life. And their fast-paced life makes them very stressful to be happy. Like, as a student, I often have work to do, and I have to stay at school for a long time, and I don't have much time to relax myself. So even we own a lot of things, we won't be happy. We can't do what we want. We can't get what we want. We can't have our me time. So it's really hard to be happy even if you have a lot of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. McDougall will ask a second question that's not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be shown after the question is asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, Hillary. Also, congratulations getting here. It's natural to be nervous. But if you could spend 1 year learning a new skill, what would it be and why?
I I hope that I can learn Japanese because I have a friend from Japan and I often, I often talk to her in English. We can communicate well, but sometimes I don't get her jokes because I'm not a local Japanese. So if I can learn Japanese, I will understand her more, about her society more, about their culture. So I think I will be a closer friend with my Japanese friends like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. Please proceed to the waiting room. All right, please attend to the screen. Let us now introduce our last grand finalist of the senior division, Mr. Koo Tin Chi Bill. He's joining us via Zoom. Can you hear me?
I can. If you guys can hear me too, that's great.
We can hear you loud and clear, Bill. All right.
Awesome.
The title of his speech is The Secret question mark to Happiness. So you're connected to the digital chamber now. You have 3 minutes and you may begin after the bell rings. You will see the time signal on your screen. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
I will count you in. 3, 2, 1.
Every student in Hong Kong prides themselves in multitasking. And we lie by telling ourselves that we do it out of happiness. But let's be realistic. We either do it for CV padding purposes or bragging rights. And I'm reminded of this quote of Socrates when he mentions, the secret to happiness, you see, is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less. This means that by doing less, we allow ourselves to fully luxuriate in the experiences. I had to learn that the hard way though. Last year, I was part of 12 ECAs, from French team to French club. And yeah, I'll admit, I thought that I was multi-talented and God's gift to my school. Until I saw the 2 big red Fs on my report card and my school rank plummeted. Yikes. After a premature midlife crisis, I began lessening my burdens and things started to change. I looked forward to my rehearsals, I conducted my own research, and I was happy. That was all I had to do. So this begged the question, why didn't I do it earlier? The answer? Compounded by the pressure to be global citizens, we're forced to partake in a multitude of activities. Hence, we start to lose the real meaning of satisfaction because we see it as an obligation more than an opportunity. And worse, we're doing it at the expense of our own health. With up to 40% of Hong Kong secondary school students overstressed, some to the extent of suicide. I think it's time we all take a step back and reevaluate what we truly need in our lives. My solutions are twofold. Just like Marie Kondo, we have to ask ourselves, does this spark joy? If not, then it's time to let it go like Elsa. Make a checklist with all your activities and rule out anything that's unimportant to you. Psychology has proven that this is a good mental exercise as active prioritization helps stimulate our brain. And in this case, this will help you improve your work-life balance. And secondly, I'll admit, these times are demoralizing, but I choose to focus on the silver lining. Seeing my friends' pixelated faces, knowing that they're safe, and participating in a speech competition, even if it's online. As choices are taken from us, let's use this to reclaim the delight in simple things. Just like my speech title, there is no big secret, but we need the courage to listen to ourselves and actively reprioritize. As Franco would say, less is more. And that is my secret to happiness. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, Bill. Mr. Nankerville will now ask you a question relating to your speech. The bell will ring once and the start card will be shown right after the question has been asked, and you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. Nankerville, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill, for your speech, and congratulations on reaching this round of the competition. My question is this. There are researchers who have argued that there is too much stress on feeling happy. One study showed that people who expressed their sadness and in fact were not afraid to cry later reported higher levels of self-esteem and were less concerned about peer pressure than their non-crying counterparts. What do you think about that?
We've all heard it. Men aren't supposed to cry. Men are supposed to be tough. I don't think so. But this doesn't also apply to men. It also applies to everyone. Because as a society, as a teacher, for example, you're forced to go into a classroom and be your best towards the children. But sometimes bottling up our emotions doesn't help us at all, but rather, as you mentioned, detriments us further because we're not able to express ourselves. Firstly, I think that we as a society need to erase the notion that you have to be strong always. But rather, I think that it is very courageous of us to show that we are vulnerable. Most importantly, just let it out, let it cry, let the tears flow. That is something that only you can control and something that you have to understand yourself. Don't let anyone shame you because of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall will now ask a second question that is not related to your speech. Again, the bell will ring once and the start card will be shown right after the question is asked. And you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Mr. McDougall, please.
Hi, Bill. I hope you're somewhere sunny and warm. You may have noticed that the boy in the senior division of this contest, and across both divisions, there are 7 girls compared to 3 boys. That's a great testament to the ability of girls and young women. Yet in broader society, positions in politics and business are still dominated by men. In fact, in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Federation of Women has a target of 30% of women on business boards. The latest figure they reached was 12. Why do you think we're still unable to reach gender equality in broader society, and who is to blame?
In all honesty, I'm going to point my finger at myself and you, because we're all part to blame. Firstly, what is the problem? Two things. Firstly, it's because of cultural indifferences, where, for example, if you look in countries in the Middle East, women weren't even allowed to drive, or in Western society, women were thought to be witches. And this notion of women being housewives, that women shouldn't be able to get education, is completely outdated. And furthermore, because of such notions, it limits them from actual mobility in life. What can we do then? Well, if we also look at the UN and other countries like Namibia and Zambia, there are actual quotas for allowing women to reach higher levels of society and actively participate in politics. And even from you and me, what we can do is not shame women because they want to be outspoken or anything. Let's encourage them to actually participate, because that is the only way in which we can attain an equal society. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. You may now leave the meeting. We'll see you in the live.